Even though over half the global refugee population are under the age of 18, less than half of them have access to even primary education. There is a crisis in delivering basic education access to refugees. And it's one that we can do something about. We can focus our advocacy, we can focus our resources, we can address this aspect of the crisis. And even with that, I would say that the aspect of that challenge that concerns me the most, motivates me the most, makes me most passionate to get up in the morning and do what we have to do as UNA USA, it's 3.7 million children who are in UNHCR refugee camps, who are school age and don't have access to education. So there are about 6 million kids who are in an actual camp setting. Because when we talk about refugees, we're talking about just communities in Turkey and in Jordan and people in communities across the world. We're not always talking about camps. But in this case, you have the infrastructure in place, you have schools, you have teachers, but the UN system, the UN Refugee Agency, just simply doesn't have the resources to add additional capacity to schools to ensure that at least half of the 6 million kids in their care can get primary education. And a kid without access to education is a child adrift. They're subject to being victims of human trafficking, an issue that our law enforcement colleagues fight bravely here in San Francisco. It's a global issue with local dimensions. If you don't have children with basic access to education, basic opportunities for the future, then you are subject to be radicalized, you are subject to being trafficked. We've got to address that. We can't afford to have a lost generation. And I would say that that is one of the primary focuses of our advocacy as UNA USA. We put about 300 people on the Hill in June to advocate for this very thing. We hope to do even more next June. It's a bipartisan issue, that there are aspects of the refugee challenge that, of course, they touch upon partisan issues, and we don't have to talk about those. But ultimately, ensuring that a kid has access to basic education in Jordan or Turkey or in the Kakuma camp or Dadaab camp in Kenya, that's a bipartisan issue. We can mobilize for that. We can address that. But we can also do more ourselves through our philanthropy, through our local action. The UN system estimates that just to accommodate the new kids coming into the system, because it's about 600,000 new kids that are added to that 6 million every year, and that's just since 2014. It's getting even higher and higher. They need to add 12,000 classrooms to their existing infrastructure base in these UNHCR-supported schools, in camp settings and others, across the 9 major priority countries, priority crises they're working on. That's something that we as UNA USA, this day, this weekend, are trying to put our own philanthropy behind. We've got 50 chapters, 50 communities across the country who are raising funds to build a single classroom. We can't build 12,000, but an individual community can. All the chapters here in the greater Bay Area are doing the same thing. I'm going to leave here, go over across the Bay Bridge, and we're going to host a fundraiser for it. There are things that we can do to personalize this crisis. We can't fix everything, but we can put our advocacy behind it. We can pick targets that have a disproportional impact, like education access, and we can put our own personal philanthropy behind it. But I would say beyond that, probably the most important thing we can all do is what you've already accomplished here. Just raising awareness for it. The challenge about addressing the refugee crisis is mobilizing resources, mobilizing advocacy, but mobilizing ourselves to see the strangers in our midst. And we've done that in this forum. We'll do that in 160 others, and I'm very grateful for everyone being here today.